Calling 911 and no one ever shows up.
A Metro couple called for help when this weapon-wielding stranger ransacked their garage and then wandered around their yard for hours. They called 911 multiple times, but help never came. News 4 investigator Lauren Traeger is getting answers as this family worries it could happen to anyone.
911, where's your emergency?
Are they even safe in their own home anymore?
This used to be Rose and Joe Everett's peaceful place, their Dupo, Illinois home where they've lived for 40 years. But one night this summer, their serenity shattered with all the evidence caught on camera.
You could see the agitation in his face, the look on his face. It was scary. It was scary.
A shirtless stranger first ransacking their garage.
He was standing right there, right in the middle of the floor.
Joe grabbed his gun.
He said, "You're not going to shoot me, are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm sure thinking about it."
But the man refused to leave.
He had no fear. He had no fear whatsoever.
Instead of shooting, they hid inside and naturally called 911.
There's somebody out in my yard. He was in the backyard. I don't know where he's at now, but I'm not thinking he's trying to get in my garage.
Okay, we do have some officers in the area looking for someone. I'll advise them and see if this is the subject they're looking for, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. We'll get officers in the area.
According to dispatch tapes, a Dupo officer indicated he'd take the call.
Is county out that way?
They don't have anybody en route at this time. They're all tied up.
So are we? I'll get to it here in just a minute.
But a minute turned into many. On their surveillance video, they watched as the man made himself at home, in and out of their garage over and over, helping himself to their stuff, setting up a campsite of sorts, all the while
Just waiting for that cop car to come flying down that hill. Well, it never happened.
Instead, they called 911 again.
I got a guy in the backyard. I called earlier about a guy in my yard, and he's stealing stuff from me and everybody else around here, and the cops still haven't showed up.
And again.
We need someone down here.
And again.
4 911 calls.
4.
No police officers.
None.
Over time, the man grew more agitated, swinging a metal pole, breaking stuff.
He was taking my solar lights and just throwing them on the ground and busting them and smacking them. And he was taking things and just turning them over, pulling them out of the ground.
Their fear and frustration evident in the final 911 call.
The look on his face, it was scary. It was scary.
Looking back, their daughter says it could have gone horribly wrong.
No officer came here to see if they were okay, if they were killed, if they were alive. No, nothing. Nothing. They could have been here dead and nobody would have known until I would have came the next day.
Finally, after close to 2 hours of this, the man just wandered away, but the Everetts still wanted answers. A dispatcher had repeatedly promised an officer would show, stating they were on a death call. The dispatcher, the Everetts said, getting kind of snippy.
I'm sorry the dead man is taking up their time. They will get to you as soon as they can.
But Kathy says there's no excuse to allow a call like this to go unanswered.
Take responsibility. You guys messed up. Simple as that. But it could have been at a major cost.
No, I do apologize to him. No family should have to go through that.
Dupo Police Chief Kevin Smith.
I would like the Everetts to know that, I feel terrible about what happened.
He says his officers should have followed up after finishing the death call, and one officer, he says, has been disciplined. But he says there's another major issue. Dispatch dropped the ball.
Do you think this was a problem with how this was dispatched out?
Well, yeah, the way that they dispatched it was a suspicious person, when if you listen to the 911 call, the lady is frantic and that she's saying he's in my garage. That is not a suspicious person anymore.
Had they known, Chief Smith says officers would have responded much differently.
It's happened in the past.
News 4 reached out to the head of dispatch, Herb Simmons, who says a supervisor reviewed all the tapes. He declined an on-camera interview but told us, quote, all dispatch protocol was followed.
Hopefully some more future talks with dispatch that we can figure something out.
What happens if the next guy is a murderer or whatever?
Rose and Joe say they felt so violated, like prisoners in their own home.
I don't ever want anybody in this lifetime to ever have to hear their parents on making a 911 phone call and hear the fear in their voice the way that I have had to.
They say they're still left with few answers, wondering how many other calls possibly go unanswered.
My parents never want anybody else to have to go through this.
We're told the suspect was found wandering around later that morning by a neighboring police department and was just dropped off at the Metrolink station. He has since been charged with burglary. His name is Jacob Anderson, but he hasn't been located again yet, and that has the Everetts worried. The chief here in Dupo says they will now treat every call as an emergency regardless of how it's dispatched out in order to avoid something like this from happening again. Reporting in Dupo, Lauren Traeger, News 4 Investigates.